Hello and welcome to the Battle of Shevardino, 5th of September 1812. Preceding the slaughter at Borodino by 2 days, the Battle of Shevardino was a bloody affair in itself. The Russian position was anchored on the left by a hastily constructed earthwork on a mound near the village of Shevardino. According to Kutuzov, this redoubt was intended to delay the French advance to give more time to prepare the main position at Borodino. Napoleon decided to eliminate the pathetic little fort before moving towards Borodino. It was 5 p.m, 2.5 hours before sunset. The Russians, led by Prince Gorbachev, are pretty thin on the ground. Initially, there's the 27th Division with General Neverovsky, and of course they'll have the artillery in the redoubt, and some cavalry with Duca, cuirassiers and dragoons. On turn 5, Mecklenburg will turn up with the 2nd Grenadier Division, and on turn 7, Prince Bagration, no less. He will arrive with the 2nd Combined Grenadier Division, confusing the very closely named the 2nd Grenadier Division with Mecklenburg. The attack by the French on Shevardino was given to Marshal Murat, who had troops from his own corps, those of Davout and Poniatowski's. First on the field will be 5th Division with Compans and the cavalry with Nansuti. Poniatowski's Poles will start to turn up from turn 2, and the 1st and 2nd Division with Morand and Friant from turn 5. Right, let's have a look at the ground. We are looking from the south to the north. Borodino itself is off to the right, to the east. The small villages of Shevardino and Borodino, not to be confused obviously with Borodino, are situated here, and they've already been set alight by the Russians. The redoubt, which many people may know this battle for, is located between the two villages on a small mound. Other terrain features of note are the river Kolocha, which is pretty dry at this time of year so is easily fordable, and large areas of forest which are going to be impenetrable by the troops and will cause them to be channeled. The Russian 27th Division is located around the redoubt and Shevardino, and Duca with his cavalry just to the south. Mecklenburg and his grenadiers are off to the east, but they can't get moving until turn 5, and Bagration is further off to the east. The bulk of the French will be arriving from the northwest across the Kolocha River. The exception to this is Poniatowski and his Poles, who will be arriving from the southwest. A few scenario notes. The game starts at 5 p.m. and ends at midnight. Each turn is 30 minutes and the game has 14 turns. At 7:30 p.m, which is turn 6, it will become dark and all movement will be halved and there will be no firing over 12-inch range. The objectives for the French is to seize the redoubt and Shevardino by midnight, and for the Russians it is to hold Shevardino until midnight. So the bird's eye view of the battlefield. Borodino on the left, burning away merrily. The Russians have set light to that, as they did a lot of the villages as the French advanced into Russia. Here's Duca with his dragoons and cuirassiers. There's the Shevardino redoubt with the battery in it from the 27th Division, which is just behind in front of Shevardino. Old Gorbachev there is front and centre. French are advancing from the northwest, their main axis of advance. Murat with his 1st Division up front, which is Compans, and the cavalry behind. To the southwest and south of Borodino, the Poles will be arriving down this valley and they'll be advancing up towards Shevardino here. Turn 1, 5 p.m, Compans division are on the move. But they're not that keen, they only go half move. Nansuti's cavalry, and let's have a look at the chasseurs closest to us. Now they're not too keen either. The hussars, neither are they. And the veteran cuirassier across the stream, they're all right, but they'll let the light cavalry go first. And just moving the generals up there as well. Russian defensive fire. The artillery in the redoubt will open fire on Compound's division. Just inside range. Fire factor 2. And that is disrupted. No offensive fire, no assaults. Russian movement. Well, it'll be no great surprise that at this stage the Russians won't be moving anywhere. No defensive fire. So it's offensive fire by the Russians. Well, the redoubt will have a go again. No effect. And that is the end of the first turn. Turn 2, 5:30, Compound division. Now they are disrupted, so they still only get half a move. And I think I should have rolled for the artillery separately last time. I'll do so now. Oh dear. Well, they weren't disrupted, so it's half a move for them. Don't think I'm going to get them to unlimber just yet. And the cavalry with Nor Suti. Let's do the hussars. They're okay. The chasseurs. They're okay as well. I think they'll be pushing around to the left of Compound's division. And the cuirassiers. Yep. Whilst I'm here, I'll do the generals. And coming from the southwest is Poniatowski's 5th Corps. They do go a minimum of a half move, which is that. But they are on the road and can go 24 normally. So they'll bang up there. That's the 16th Division. And the 17th are right up behind them. And the artillery's on behind. Next turn they'll right wheel and get off that road and head up towards the redoubt. Defensive fire for the Russians. Compound's division is now out of arc. They can just about hit the artillery coming up though, and they'll go for that. Fire factor of 2. And that is no effect. No offensive fire, no assault, so it's now the Russian movement. So the French coming from the right as we look, and the Poles from the left. What the Russians do not want to do at the moment is advance to engage because they're outnumbered, so they will stay where they are. No defensive fire, so it is offensive fire. The redoubt's in action again. Same target, fire factor 2. No effect. And that is the end of turn. Turn 3, 6 PM. Right, Compound, what's happening here? Another half move. I can't believe this. I don't like it. What's the artillery up to? They will half move and unlimber. And they've done that okay. And they'll be getting ready to pound the Russian line. Right, what's the cavalry up to? Hussars. They're moving. Chasseurs. Yep. And the cuirassiers. Half move for them. Light cavalry are looking for a flanking manoeuvre here. And Poniatowski's corps. 16th Division first. They're okay. Now, they will change direction and march to the sound of the guns. And they will also change formation. 17th Division. They're okay. They'll move up the road and effectively do the same. And the artillery. Well, they just go a half move. But they're on the road, so that's 12 anyway. And again, move the general over. Well, the only defensive fire from the Russians is from the redoubt, and everybody is out of arc, so that's no good. There is no offensive fire because the French artillery on the right as we look have just moved and unlimbered. No assaults, so it's the Russian movement. And I think the guns in the battery will pivot to their right. 27th Division might think about moving. Let's see what happens. 6. Well, that's half move, but they'll move forward slightly and pivot on the right. I've just moved them up to musket range. And on the left, I think it's good to go with the Russian cavalry. They are going to charge the 16th Polish Division. Cuirassiers. They're okay. And the dragoons. Ooh, just about.
So they've got 18 inches move, both of them crash into the poles. So the Polish division will defensive fire as the cavalry crash in, fire factor 2, no effect. And same on the French left, but they do have skirmishers, so it's 2 shifts right. Disrupted and halted. So now the redoubt battery will fire. Fire factor 2 only because although they're closer range they have pivoted. No effect. And the 27th Division will be firing with a fire factor of 4, 2 right shifts because of the skirmishers. However, they are disrupted, so it's back to fire factor 2. And the French are disrupted. And finally, the cavalry assault on the Polish division here. That is +1 to the cavalry. No numerical advantage. The cavalry are aggressive. Both are in depth. So that is a +2 to the Russians. Defender retires 3. Attacker occupies the position and both are disrupted. And look at that, old Poniatowski's wounded. He's far too close to the cuirassier there. And that, I think, is the end of turn. It's turn 4 and 6:30 PM. Right, let's sort out Compound's division. Now, they are disrupted, but I am forgetting the +1 for the general himself. So that's 8. They can go half move. However, they're going to wait for the artillery to open fire first. Now, the cavalry just to the north. Chasseur. Well, that's a poor roll, even with a +1 of non-2C, that is no move at all. And the Hussars, right, well they're alright, and they'll continue to sweep around the north of Shevardino. And there they are, threatening the Russian lines of communication. Cuirassier. They'll just come to their right. Got to be careful of that artillery. They'll be waiting to charge into the Russian 27th Division. Over to the Poles, the disrupted unit here. They're back to normal. And the 17th Division, they'll probably take over the advance. 4, I don't think the wounded general can add any command initiative there, so they do not move. So the 16th Division will advance again, and the cavalry will evade. Cavalry will keep their disrupted status there. Artillery. They'll move along the road. Turn and start to go cross country. Now we'll do some general action. Poniatowski recovers from the wound. And I think that's about it. Well, it's a target-rich environment for the Russians in the redoubt. The cuirassiers are out of arc, but the French artillery and the French infantry are definitely in it. What to go for? I think they'll go for artillery. Fire factor 3. Disrupted. And that will affect the French gunnery. Now the 27th Division will open fire on the French infantry. Fire factor 4. 2 shifts right because of skirmishers, but that's halved because they're disrupted. And that's certainly no effect. So staying on the French left, Compound's artillery will open fire. Fire factor 3, but they are disrupted, so it's column 2. Target disrupted again. Well, that's no effect because they already are. And the infantry, fire factor 2, but it's 2 shifts right because of the skirmishers. And that's no effect. There are no assaults. Russian movement. Back to the Russian left with Duka's cavalry. They did a good job disrupting the Poles last time. Can they continue? Cuirassier. 7, 8 with Duka. And for a disrupted unit, that is half move. But they are rallied. And the Dragoons. Same with them. And like last time, they will both charge into the 16th Division. Let's see if the 27th Division can rally. 7 +1 because of old matey there. Yes. Do they want to move? Big question. I think I'll bring them back a bit. So a slow retreat on the right by the Russians here. There's only one defensive fire for the French. That's the artillery battery. However, they are disrupted, and the Russians also have skirmishes, which I forgot previously. So it's fire factor 3, but that's reduced down to column 1. No effect. Of course, not forgetting the Poles firing against the cavalry as they charge in. Fire factor 2, but of course the target is cavalry, so it's a shift right. Crashing volley there. Kills off one of the dragoon regiments. However, they are low on ammunition. And indeed, they're halted before they got there. They're also disrupted, so that's a disaster for Duca there. Offensive fire by the Russians. The redoubt is back in action. They will take on the French artillery. Fire factor 3, but of course the target is artillery, so it's one shift right. Well, that's a cracking effort there. That destroys the French battery. So they're gone. However, the Russian artillery go low on ammunition after all that expenditure. No assaults because the cavalry didn't make it. End of turn. It's turn 5, 7 PM, and reinforcements for both the Russians and the French are on their way. Before we get there, though, let's look at the French right flank with Poniatowski's corps, 16th Division to the front. 5+1 because of the general. In fact, not +5. He's outside of 6-inch range. 5's a half move. Well, they'll continue to advance, and the cavalry will have to evade again. I'm not quite sure whether the general retires with the cavalry, but that's what I've done. Get the artillery moving up. They're okay. They'll do a half move and unlimber. They'll be firing at the redoubt as soon as they can. And the 17th Division, +1 because of Poniatowski. That's okay, and they'll move right up behind the 16th. And I'll move the general up now. And the Polish 5th Corps advance on the Russian left. French right is looking very threatening now. With the artillery dispersed, Compin will get his 5th Division moving straight into the Russian 27th. Or not. +1 is 6, half a move. We're actually just short. Let's see if we can get the cuirassier in. Yep, they're okay. They're up for it, and they're going to go for it. They are aggressive, and they are shot cavalry. Compin moves up, as does Murat. The Hussars just to the north of Shevardino. 3, ooh, no move. They've left Non-Suti well behind. Let's see what the Chasseurs are doing. 6 plus Non-Suti 7, that's a full move, and they'll come up alongside the Hussars. And again, I'll move the general up now. Moran's 1st Division. Yep. And Friant's 2nd Division. They'll be coming on a little bit further south. French reinforcements deployed. Massive pressure on the Russians now. Poles to the left, pushing to the south of the Shevardino redoubt. Compin's division pushing the 27th Division north of the redoubt. And 2 other divisions entering the battlefield now. Right, defensive fire against the cuirassier as required now. The battery can fire even though it's low on ammunition because it's the first defensive fire phase for the Russians. It'll be a total of fire factor 5 artillery suffering because of the low ammunition. 1 shift right because of the skirmishes. The cavalry are disrupted, but because they're veteran, they crash home. The other Russian defensive fire will be against the 5th Division. Fire factor 2, 1 shift right. No effect. Now the French will open up offensive fire. Fire factor 2, shift right 2. Russians are disrupted. And we're straight into the assault with the cuirassier crashing into the Russian line infantry. +2 for the French. +4 because they're aggressive and shock cavalry. Still +4 because they're both disrupted. And that is defender, lose 1 base, so one of the skirmishers will go, and retire 9 inches. And the cuirassiers will occupy the defensive position. Well, in fact, they won't. They will continue to exploit and catch the infantry again. Gorbachev is not happy with this as the cuirassier goes screaming past and smash into the infantry that have just run past him. It's not on the rules, but I'm going to give Neverovsky a wound there as the cuirassier gallop past him. Sabres drawn, they smash into the 27th Division. No defensive fire. Well, that's +2 to the Russians. That goes to 0 because the cuirassiers are aggressive and they're shock cavalry. They're both disrupted, so that's a net 0 result. Both sides lose 1 base. The 1st Cuirassier Division bites the dust. Skirmishes are gone for the Russians. And we fight again. Ding ding, round 3. Well, that's +2 to the Russians again. Goes to net 0 as before, but this time the Cuirassiers are outnumbered 3-2. So it's +1 to the Russians. So it's -1 to the attacker. And they have to retire 3 inches. Move old matey out the way there. He's already been wounded once. So look at that, absolute disaster for the French. Although the Cuirassiers, they have finally been pushed back. 27th Division is way south of Shevardino village, which is one of the objectives. Russian movement. I think Duca's cavalry have got to charge the Poles again. Can he get them under control? Cuirassier nearest us first. +1, yes. Just half a move, but that'll be enough. And the Dragoons, ooh dear, no, that's 4. So they remain disrupted and do not move. So, do the Cuirassiers charge in on their own? They'll be outnumbered 2-1. I don't think they can. Dear oh dear. No, they'll stay there. Neverovsky's infantry. Right, they're under control. If they advance, the cavalry will evade, I guess, and I think they will have to. So the cavalry disappear. They've done a good job, and the infantry will close the gap between Shevardino and the redoubt. Neverovsky recovers from his wound. Gorbachev has sent an ADC to Mecklenburg to request for assistance, and he's on the move. Oh dear. Well, because they're deploying for the first time, they get half a move, so they'll come along 6 inches. And the 2nd Grenadier Division Artillery, they're okay. So they'll go half move, 12 inches, and unlimber. And they're protecting the Russian right flank from those French light cavalry. Russian defensive fire phase. The artillery here have moved and unlimbered, so they'll be able to fire, but it's half effect. They need to start smashing the redoubt. Fire factor 3. Halved because they've unlimbered, but 3 shifts left because of the fort. I don't think it can do anything actually, unless they get a doubled 6. Well, certainly not with that. Now, the battery themselves this time have got to get rid of this low ammunition marker, and that is them. They can't fire. However, Mecklenburg's gang can have a go at the light cavalry. Fire factor 2, halved because they've moved and unlimbered. Again, needing a miracle here. No effect. There are no assaults. End of turn. Well, it is turn 6 and 7:30 and it's now dark. That means all movement is halved and the maximum range for firing is 12 inches. Right, so the first thing the French are going to do is start moving the Poles. Well, I don't think it'll be much fun to watch that in dark, so we'll go light again, but noting the restrictions. Right, what's the Poles up to? 16th Division will drive forward. Oh, blimey. 5 plus 1, 6. Well, that's half a move, which is 6 inches, which is halved again, actually. Oh, crikey, it's only 3. Need to be careful, because off to the east is the Grenadiers arriving. Anyway, they'll advance just the 3. Seventeenth Division behind them. Even worse. 4 becomes 5, half move, 3 inches. Dear oh dear, it's not going well, is it? And whilst we're here, we'll move up old Poniatowski. Guns will stay there. They can fire at the redoubt. French want to smash home their advantage here. 5th Division. Oh, they're okay. They finally got their goat. They will assault the Russians. And the Cuirassier, 9, 10 with old Compant there. They are good to go, and they will join in the fun. Compant will move up. The Tsars on the right, they're okay. They can go 9, but I think they want to stay out of the range of that artillery. Chasseurs, they're okay, and they'll do the same. Non-2C will join them. French reinforcements. 4, 5 with the general. Half move, 3 inches. They're stumbling in the dark. I'll not bother rolling separately for the artillery there. And the 2nd Division, they get cracking. Just the 6th though. Russian defensive fire. Well, it's the fog of war, isn't it? These French light cavalry have actually come within 12 inches of the grenadier artillery, so they will open fire. Fire factor 3, and they're firing at the hussars on the right. 1 shift right because it's cavalry. And the hussars are disrupted. Cannonballs whistling out of the dark. So the other defensive fire will be the Russian infantry and the redoubt firing at the cavalry as they come in. The artillery will be on factor 9, and the infantry will add another 3. So that's a total of 12, 1 shift right because the target is cavalry. That is 1 casualty, and they are halted before they get there. 2nd Cuirassier Regiment disperse. The Cuirassier are not quite spent because they are veteran and need to lose 3 bases. Now it's the 27th Division firing at the 5th Division as they come in. Fire factor 2. 1 shift right because they're in column. That is no effect. French offensive fire. The Polish artillery will have a go at the redoubt. Fire factor 3. Shifted left 3. No effect. Funny old thing. And the French 5th Division will crack on with their skirmishers as they close to assault. Fire factor 2. 2 right shifts because of the skirmishers. And that's 1 base destroyed, and the Russians are disrupted and will stay here for the assault. Well, that is +1 for the French. 3-2 numerical advantage, +2. In depth, +3. And it's +4 because the Russians are disrupted. And that means another base goes and the 27th Division retire again. French advance. Nevrovsky is a casualty, but it also means that the 27th Division are now spent. Over to the Russians. What on earth can they do now? Indeed. Well, let's get Mecklenburg's 2nd Grenadier Division moving. They will be moving to the Russian left flank. That's 7, 8 with Mecklenburg. That's a full move, which is obviously only 6 inches though. The artillery will stay where it is. I'll move old Mecklenburg up. So what's Duca's cavalry up to? I think they need to charge the old Poles again. Cuirassier, 5, 6 with Matey. Half a move, which is 3 inches. That's just enough to get in there. And can the Dragoons rally? Yes. So they're back to normal. And both cavalry will now charge in again. I'm allowing the Dragoons to change formation there as well. Not quite sure whether I can do that, but that's what I've gone for. Now, what's happening to the 27th Division? 8. They will get a -2 because they're spent, so they do rally in place, but no move. The Russian generals will reposition. Obviously, Gorbachev is far too close there. He'll come back here. And Nevrovsky as well. And finally, before we forget, because it's turn 7, Prince Bagration is on the way with the 2nd Combined Grenadier Division. 7 plus Bagration, 8. That's a full move. Now it's dark, but they're on the road, so I will allow them to go 12. Sorely needed reinforcements. French defensive fire against the Russian cavalry. Fire factor 3. No effect. The charge goes home. Artillery firing on the redoubt. No effect. And now it's over to Russian offensive fire. Well, now look at the French cuirassiers. They're far too close to the artillery in the redoubt. Stand by. Oh, now look at that. One casualty, and that is the cuirassiers dispersed. Again, the artillery go low on ammunition. 4th and 5th cuirassier regiments are destroyed. And the other Russian artillery again firing at the hussars. Fire factor 4. Oh, can you believe it? Look at that, double six again. That is a base destroyed, and if you lose one and you only have 2, those cavalry have gone. 7th and 8th Hussar regiments destroyed. The cavalry are getting smashed. And back to the heavy cavalry smashing into the Poles on the left flank. +3 for the Russians. Even Stevens on the troop numbers. The cuirassiers are aggressive and they are shock cavalry, so that's another +2 for them. +5. Both are in depth, so that cancels out. So it's +5 victory for the Russians. The Poles lose a base and have to retire 9. And that puts them back there. Now the attacker may exploit or occupy the defender's position. Well, they're cavalry. What else would they do but charge the 17th Division? No defensive fire, we're straight into close combat. I think this all cancels out actually. It's +1 to the Poles. Aggressive and shock cavalry, but they're disrupted. So that works out at net 0. Both sides disrupted, lose a base and immediately fight a new assault. Well now, if one of the cavalry lose a base, then the other one goes with it. So let's see if it's the cuirassier here or the dragoons. It's the cuirassier. Whoa, that's a disaster. And the next round of combat is not looking good for the dragoons. Right, net 0. However, they're outnumbered 2 to 1 now, +2 to the Poles. No aggression and no shock cavalry from the dragoons. Both are disrupted, so I think it stays at 2. Defender retires 3. Well, I think the dragoons got away with that. And the Poles will take the ground. So a cracking effort by Duca's cavalry on the Russian right flank there. However, whilst they've pushed the Poles back, they virtually destroyed themselves doing so, and there's a big gap now to the south of the redoubt. There is the battery still remaining in that redoubt, but they're virtually surrounded by the French, and it looks as though Shevardino has fallen because the French are just to the south of it, and indeed to the east as well. Although French cavalry are getting chewed up by the artillery at the moment. Turn 7, 8 PM. Polish division will push on. Let's have a look at the 17th. Poniatowski's with them, that's 10, so they are okay. Full move, and the 16th behind. 8, they will also recover, and they'll half move. So, cavalry will evade again, because that lot are going to advance. And the 16th will start to make its way towards the redoubt to assault that. Obviously keeping out the way of the artillery. Poniatowski goes with the 17th Division. Compound's 5th Division will continue on its path. Well, they don't actually. That's a shame. The chasseur with non-Tusi. Oh dear. Well, they get a half move actually because non-Tusi's there. They are just going to pull back out of range of the artillery. Orleans 1st Division on the right. 6, 7 with him. Full move. But they've got a long way to go. Now Friant's 2nd Division. Away they go as well. Looking southeast from the French lines, Shevardino on our left and obviously the redoubt on the right. Compound's division is advancing between the two. But look out, old Duca. He's been caught by the Poles too close to them and he becomes a casualty. Russian defensive fire. Well, the battery in the redoubt is low on ammunition, so they won't be firing and just get themselves sorted for that. And the other Russian gun here is just protecting the flank, and the chasseurs have moved out of range, so no firing there either. I think there's only one bit of offensive firing, and that's the battery to the right-hand side of the redoubt. Needing a miracle. Oh, can you believe it? Well, I've got to work that one out. I wasn't expecting it. Well, because the target is artillery, the battery actually becomes silenced. Now, there is an option to place a silence marker on them or low ammunition. And that's what I'm going to do. So they're back on low ammo again. That's a real shame. I thought the Frenchies had done that then. No assaults, Russian move. Right, first of all, let's see what's happening with the cavalry. They recover, and they can go half a move should they wish, but I think at the moment they will just stay there. Mecklenburg's Grenadiers. Right, well, they're compliant, and they'll just drive straight forward for the Poles. They can't quite make contact. Right, it's getting rather confusing with all the generals. So that's all Mecklenburg there. Let's see what's happening with the 27th Division with Neverovsky. It's -2 on the roll, but +1 for him. So that becomes 9. So they can get a full move. Well, I think they'll just nudge forward here. Neverovsky will go with them. And I'm sorry, me old China, Prince Bagration, you should have been coming on this turn, not last turn, so I'm going to hold you here. You are now lost in the dark. And finally we'll get Duca on the move. He'll recover and come back to his cavalry, what's left of them. French defensive fire. Firing at the redoubt again. No. And again, if he got another double 12, not quite sure they could do anything anyway. And the only other defensive firing is the Poles firing at the 2nd Grenadier Division as they close. Fire factor 2. No effect. Grenadiers will return the favour. No effect. And again, the guns in the redoubt will remove the low ammo marker. End of offensive firing. No assaults. End of turn. Turn 8, 8:30 p.m. 16th Division are going to try and move closer to the redoubt. It's a full move, but they're going up a steep slope now. So they'll just be going 3 inches. It's a painfully slow advance in the dark, stumbling over rocks as they go uphill. I think the 17th Division will assault here. 6, 7 with Poniatowski. They're in. Back over to the 5th Division. Yeah, no problem there. And they'll make contact with the 27th. This could be nasty. Compound will move up. I'm not quite sure what Murat's doing over there, but I guess he'll come over as well. French reinforcements. Yep. Yes. They're getting there slowly. And the cavalry over here. Now, I'm not quite sure what to do with them because they're getting blasted every time they approach from the Russian artillery. So perhaps they'll come back around Shevardino and look to loop in somewhere else. Right, okay, so they can go 9, and they've got a turn, so go over here, 6. An old Norm 2C will come with them. Well, defensive fire from the Russians, nobody's in the arc with the redoubt, so they'll have to move next turn and pivot around. But here we've got the Grenadiers firing at the Poles as they come in. Fire factor 2. Poles are disrupted. Luckily they're trained, otherwise they would have been halted, so the assault goes in. Well, I almost forgot the Russian 27th Division defensive fire. Fire factor 3, I don't think they have anything for being spent, that's mainly in the assault itself. But it's left shift 2 because of the French skirmishes. So that's no effect. And the French obviously will be returning fire. Fire factor 2, 2 shifts right. That's also pretty useless. Right, they will be assaulting now. And back to the Polish 17th Division. Fire factor 1. Well, I tell you what, they've only gone and disrupted the Grenadiers. And finally, 5th Corps artillery against the redoubt. No effect. Back to the assault. Well, that's +1 to the Russians. Now, they do outnumber the Poles 3-2, so it's +2. They're both in depth and they're both disrupted, so that cancels out. So that's a win by 2. Attacker retires 3 inches. And they both remain disrupted. And let's see the French 5th Division versus the Russian 27th Division in close assault. Well, that is +1 to the Russians. However, they're outnumbered 2-1. So that becomes +1 to the French. French are in depth, +2. And the Russians are spent, +4. Defender loses 1 base and retires 9. And the French will advance. Now I'm afraid Novorossky has been caught again. He's already been a casualty once, so I'm going to kill him off. Gone. Doesn't make a great deal of difference to the game per se, but it does mean that if 27th Division ever get back into it, they can't get their general bonus. We're on to Russian movement, and I tell you what, Grenadiers here might have a chance against the 17th Polish Division. Now they are disrupted, but Mecklenburg is there, so that will be a full move. Reorganise themselves, and it'll be no great surprise where they're going. Duke's cavalry, I think, will start to move up. Yep. And Mecklenburg's artillery, I'll tell you what they're going to do. They will pivot and will open fire on the 5th Division in due course. 27th Division, what's left of them? 5. Well, it's -2 for being spent, so that's 3. They are disrupted and no move. Well, they will remain disrupted and stay there. Busted flush. And what about old Bagration? His gang's okay. Let's check the artillery. Yes, right. They can go 4 inches on the road, which will count as 2. And another 4. The artillery will come up behind them. Well, that's it for Russian movement. There aren't many troops to move around, to be honest. However, I will shuffle the generals about. Duka goes over there. Mecklenburg goes here. Gorbachev will just drop back a bit. French are threatening. And Bagration moves up. Think that's about it. Well, no, one last movement. The battery in the redoubt are going to pivot, and they're allowed to go 180. Can they manage to get some rounds off against the Poles as they advance? Polish defensive fire. Fire factor 1 because they're disrupted. No effect. The artillery against the redoubt. No. And unfortunately the 16th Division assaulting the redoubt are too far away for any effective fire. Over to the Russians. Well, we'll stay here with the redoubt. Fire factor 2. No effect. The Russian Grenadiers firing at the Poles. Fire factor 2. Poles are disrupted. Well, they already are, so no effect. And the artillery firing against 5th Division here. Again, fire factor 2. Disrupted. Back to the assault. Well, that's +2 to the Grenadiers. Miracle advantage 3-2 goes to 3. They're both in depth. However, the old Poles are disrupted. So that goes to 4. Defender loses a base and retires 9. Grenadiers will follow up. Poniatowski is casualty, and that's him gone. And both divisions are disrupted. And that's a cracking counterattack by the Grenadiers on the Russian left flank. End of turn. Turn 9, 9 PM. Let's start with the French reinforcements. 1st Division, 5. That's half a move, 3 inches. Obviously the going is a bit difficult here, especially in the dark. And the 2nd Division, they're okay, they'll crack on 6. The Poles on the French right. Let's do the 16th Division first. They're okay, but they only get half a move. They've got to stem the tide of the Russian Grenadiers there. So advance 3, and the 16th Division assaulting the redoubt. And they're over 3 inches away, and they're going up a steep slope, so I don't think they can get there this time. It is a full move. They can only go 6 maximum, lose 3 because of the slope. The brave Poles attempt to assault the redoubt, but they haven't made it, and they're going to get canister straight in the face. What's happened to Non-Souti's Chasseur? They get 6. I think that's a half move, which for them is 9, so it's not too bad. They'll skirt around Shevardino to the west. And finally Compound's 5th Division. 5. They are disrupted. He's there, so it's 6. Rally in place, no move. Ooh, that's not good. Especially as that gun is right in their face. And that is the end of French movement. So it's on to Russian defensive fire. We'll stay here and get some battery action towards 5th Division. Fire factor 3. But they do have skirmishers, so it's left shift 2. No effect. However, with the Polish assault on the redoubt, it's fire factor 9 for the Russians. It's point blank range. 1 casualty, and the Poles are disrupted. Now it's the French offensive fire. It's fire factor 1 for the Poles. Left shift 3 because of the redoubt. I think a 12 or nothing is for them. Look at that. I mean, can you believe it? Well, I don't know. What do you say about that? That is the end of offensive fire. There are no assaults. We're on to the Russian movement. Right, let's start with the 2nd Grenadier Division. 11. Now they are disrupted, but Mecklenburg is there, so they are good to go. And it's no great surprise as to where they're going. All of a sudden, the Russians are doing far better. Let's see if Duca's cavalry can cause some mischief. 7. 8 with Jobber. Yes, they're off and running. 9 to move. And you know what? They can swing behind the Polish division and hit the artillery. I'll move Duca up there as well. And Mecklenburg. Bagration's combined Grenadier Division. Fine. Now, what they're going to do is pivot to their right and get into line. I'll do the 27th, not that it's worth anything. 8 old Gorbachev is there, so they're okay, but they're not going to be doing anything, are they? And finally, the 2nd Combined Grenadier Division Artillery. And they'll move off to their right. Defensive fire from the Poles. No effect. The attack on the redoubt. No effect. Now we're into Russian offensive fire. Fire factor 3, but left shift 2 because of the skirmishers. No effect. Fire factor 9 in the redoubt. It's another casualty. And if a unit is reduced to 1 base, they are destroyed. The Polish 16th Division have gone. It was a gallant effort, but to no avail. Suicide mission. And finally, fire factor 2 for the Grenadiers going into the Polish here. No effect. Therefore, we have an assault. Well, that's not looking good for the Poles. That's 4-0 so far. +2 for numerical advantage. They're on 6. Defender loses 1 base. And retires 9. Grenadiers will take the ground. And the final assault is the Dragoons smashing into the artillery from the flank. So we start with net 0. +2 to the Russians because the Poles are flanked. Another +2 because they're outnumbered. +1 because the Dragoons are in depth. So it's a total of +5, and that is it. The artillery are run down, hacked to pieces. Dragoons will occupy the position and become disrupted. Well, just look at this. Can you believe it? The Russians have put in a fantastic counterattack on their left. The 2nd Grenadier Division has mulched the Poles here. They had a foolish assault on the redoubt and got cut down there. But the 17th Division have been pushed back by the Grenadiers there. And their artillery have just been cut to pieces. Where are you, French reinforcements? Far too far behind. And look, the Russians are getting their act together in the middle. Bagration's up here, still a little bit weak. Need to be careful. But the artillery are massing there in the dark. So Compound and 5th Division need to be very careful. Turn 10 and it's 9:30. Right, Compound's 5th Division. Let's see what you've got. 6, 7 with Compound. It's a full move. Now, they outnumber Bagration's 2nd Combined Grenadier Division, but obviously they've got the artillery on their left flank. Big decision time. Ooh, they go for it. What's left of the Poles on the left 4. No general there. They remain disrupted and don't move. Non-2C and his chasseur. Oh dear, they're not moving anywhere. 1st Division. 6. Well, it's half a move again. Dallying in the dark. And the 2nd Division. Okay. And the artillery will come a cropper up against that slope. I think I'll get them to unlimber next time. French movement complete. Defensive fire. So we'll have the battery of artillery firing here as 5th Division come in, and also the 2nd Combined Grenadier Division. Fire factor 9 for the artillery, up to 12 with the Grenadiers, but left shift 2 because of the skirmishes. The 5th Division are disrupted, but not halted. The Russian battery in the redoubt doesn't have any targets. They'll need to about turn again. So we're over to French offensive fire. And that's back to the 5th Division. Fire factor 1 because they're disrupted, but they do get 2 right shifts because of skirmishes. And that's a cracking effort there. They've killed off a base of Grenadiers who are now disrupted. And the charge goes home. But 5th Division will be low on ammo. No other offensive fire from the French, so we're straight into this combat. So that's -1 to the French. However, they outnumber the Russians 3-1 now, and that's the French +2. +4 because the French are in depth, back to 3 because they're low on ammo. And that means the Russians retire 3 inches. And the French take the ground. This battle is not over yet. Russian movement. Well, let's get Bagration's Grenadiers sorted out first. Yeah, they've recovered, but I think they'll just stay there. The 27th Division behind. 7 with Gorbachev. Down to 5 actually, because they are spent. But they can still move, and they will, and they'll join the Grenadiers in line. Duca's Cavalry. Yes, they're okay. Now I'm just going to pivot there and keep an eye on the Poles. The 2nd Grenadier Division with Mecklenburg. 7. Well, they rally, and I think I need them over to the right. Half a move. Russian gunners working like Trojans in the redoubt. They're going to about turn again. The gun here will pivot. And the other battery will go alongside them, half a move and unlimber. Looking nasty for the 5th Division. Defensive fire for the French. Fire factor 2, 2 right shifts. No effect. Russian guns in the redoubt will open fire on the 2nd Division here. Fire factor 3, but half because they pivoted around. And 2 left shift because of skirmishes. That's no great surprise, that is no effect. But it's back to the 5th Division to see how they're going to get on with some artillery in the flank and the Grenadiers to their front. So it's fire factor 4 for the infantry. The artillery are 18, but that is half because of movement. So it's just total fire factor 13. 2 left shifts because of skirmishes, but also 1 right shift because they're hitting the flank. 1 casualty, so skirmisher base goes. They are disrupted, but that's no effect because they already are. No assaults. End of turn. Turn 11. 10 o'clock. Things are looking desperate for Compans' 5th Division. They've got to sort themselves out here. 6 with Compan becomes 7. They rally. Get a half move, and I think the only thing they can do is continue that charge. It's death or glory. I'll move Compan up now. And over to the north of the redoubt. Artillery on the left as we look. Right, they're going to unlimber. The 2nd Division are going to prepare to assault. Or not. Dear, oh dear. That's 4 with the general there. But that's no move. Oh, it's getting worse and worse. What's the cavalry up to? They're okay. I'm not quite sure what to do with them. Perhaps they can come through the gap between the redoubt and Shevardino and give the 5th Division a bit of support. Or about the best they can do. And finally the 1st Division with Mound. God, blimey, these dice for the French. No move. Wow. With those 2 reinforcement divisions failing to move, I think that's a critical part of the battle. And finally on the French right, the Poles. Well, they've recovered, but again, they're not going to be going anywhere. Russian defensive fire. Battery in the redoubt. 2nd Division are the target. Fire factor 3, but it's 2 left shift because of those skirmishes. No effect. But this is the one that matters. Fire factor 4 for the Russian infantry. 18, certainly not halved this time for the Russian artillery. Total of 22. 1 shift left because of skirmishes. Disaster for the French. That's 2 casualties. They're disrupted and they are halted on their advance. Of little succour to them is that the Russians have gone low on ammunition across the board. They've been piling so much ammunition into that division. No more defensive fire. Offensive fire, well, of course, the French can't. All they're going to do is get rid of that. 2nd Division's artillery will open fire on the redoubt. But with 3 left shifts, that's not doing anything either. No assaults, Russian movement. Mecklenburg's Grenadiers. They'll be up for it, but because they've started to hit that slope, they will actually only go 3. Dragoons will stay there. The 2nd Combined Grenadiers, they're okay, but I think they're just going to stay there. 27th Division to the right, they're okay. And the 2 gun batteries, yep. But again, they will all stay there. French defensive fire. 5th Division firing with fire factor 2 only, in fact down to 1 because they're disrupted. And they've lost their skirmishers now. No effect. Firing at the redoubt. No effect. And for the Russian offensive fire, they will just sort out their low ammunition status. And with that lull of firing, can the French escape that kill zone? The artillery in the redoubt will target 2nd Division again. No effect. No assaults. End of turn. Turn 12, 10:30 p.m. 5th Division. That is a disaster. 3, 4 with Matey there. They're already disrupted. They remain disrupted and they do not move. Well, that may well be curtains. Let's have a look at the cavalry. Well, that's a half move for them. Now, interestingly, they might be able to attack some artillery here, actually. They're turning outside of their frontal arc, so they'll lose 3 inches. Total of 9, 6. They just about have enough to get in on that artillery there. Can Frion's 2nd Division start moving? Yes, finally. But again, they've got to start coming up that steep slope. And the 1st Division with Morand. 6. Oh dear. They've clearly had a nightmare coming across that ground in the dark. But I tell you what, I wouldn't fancy being in Morand's shoe when he has an interview without brandy with Murat. Russian defensive fire. Well, I'm thinking that the battery on the left, as we look, will still be able to fire at 5th Division, and they'll just get hit by the cavalry after that. So it's fire factor 18 for the artillery, and just the 3 infantry here, the Grenadiers and the line infantry, because old matey at the end is out of range. No skirmishers to protect the French. Well, can you believe it? Another 11 being rolled there. Actually, it's another 2 shifts right because of the flank fire from the artillery, which I forgot. That is 3 casualties in actual fact. 5th Division have just been wiped from the earth. Disaster for Murat. Russian battery from the redoubt against the 2nd Division coming up the hill. Fire factor 3, 2 left shifts. No effect. French offensive fire. No effect. And the final assault by the chasseur against the artillery. Well, I don't know what the Russian artillerymen have got up their sleeves there, but they've taken a 3-0 lead, or rather, should I say, French -3. Goes to -2 because the artillery outnumbered. Goes to -1 because the cavalry are in depth. But that's it, -1. Attacker retires 3. A piss poor effort there by the chasseur. Russian movement. Right, let's do some artillery action here. They're okay. And they will simply pivot. The other battery, they're okay. They will pivot. Grenadiers here. Yes, they will advance. Well, that's old Compin. Well, his division's gone, so I guess he's scarpered off already. 27th Division. No. Well, it's half move, actually. There we go. Bagration there, should be over there. Gorbachev, I'm not quite sure what he's been doing. Duca and his dragoons. They're okay. Again, they'll just hold there. No requirement to charge in, I don't think. And Mecklenburg's 2nd Grenadier Division. Yeah. And they'll continue around there. Again, just half move because of that slope. Contouring around nicely. The only defensive fire from the French is the artillery. No effect on the redoubt. The Grenadiers were out of arc. Now it's offensive fire. Well, the Grenadiers can actually fire at the gun there. Fire factor 2. No effect. The battery and the redoubt. Fire factor 3. 2 left shifts. No effect. And the 2 batteries here firing at the chasseur. The battery on the left is in close range. So it's fire factor 9 halved. And the other one is fire factor 3 halved. So I make that fire factor 6. 1 right shift because the target is cavalry. Double bubble. Bang. 1 casualty. Reduced to 1 base. Destroyed. Oh dear, non-2C. You have to gallop away as well, mate. No assaults. End of turn. Well, there we go. I make it 11 PM, turn 13. And I'm going to call it there. And the reason being is, of course, the French did a good attack to start with and smashed through Shevardino and the redoubt. But they got carved up by Bagration's reinforcements there. The remnants of 27 Division, but ultimately the batteries of artillery. Yeah, old Murat's just there on his own, wondering what on earth's happened as people go streaming past back to French lines. The redoubt held firm throughout. In fact, that was extremely difficult to attack, as the Poles found out. And that right flank on the French attack obviously failed miserably after the Grenadiers came in from the Russians. Here they are, and they're still pushing up onto Friant's 2nd Division. And late to the party is old matey, old Morand, with his 1st Division. He's been fanning around for far too long, hours, crossing the ground in the dark. He couldn't find his way, and he's too late. It's victory for the Russians. Shevardino is held, although I suspect they'll slip away in the rest of the night back to their mates at the main defensive position at Borodino. But that was an epic victory for the Russians.